Hey, Good News family, welcome to Now What, the podcast where we pull up a chair, talk through Sunday's message, and ask the question we're all thinking, now what? What do we do with what we just heard? And how do we actually live it out this week? So grab your coffee, your energy drink, whatever will keep you engaged, and let's figure it out together.
Hello, Good News family. So nice to see you and be with you again. I am joined today by, let's go with, they always say save the best for last. So I'm going to save Pastor Miki for last. I'm stuck with this guy today. No, he's pretty great. Pastor Rafael is with us today, as well as Pastor Miki. We're so excited to be here. So how was everybody's weekend? We got a big snowstorm this weekend.
Yes.
Not the weekend. It was like Thursday.
Well, it carried over to the weekend.
Yeah. All I know is that I was sick last week and I was in and out of consciousness all day Wednesday, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then my phone rang at 5 a.m. Thursday from my kids' school telling me that school was canceled, and I was very confused because I was like, it was 70 degrees, I think, yesterday, and now there's no school. And then I went back into my comatose state, having the flu or whatever it was that I got, and I woke up at like maybe 2 p.m. Thursday afternoon, and there was still no snow. So I was very confused, but then it made its way.
Yep.
So here we are.
That's what happens when you take drugs.
Okay. Oh. I told you I was going to save the. That's why.
I know.
That's why I saved Pastor Miki for the
I
best.
have to get you somehow.
Also, while I was sick, I really leaned into watching TV because when your bones feel like they're being crushed, that's kind of all you can do. And so I watched the Olympics. A big fan. Mm-hmm. Also, I did ask you today if you wore your USA colors because if you don't know, you're probably the only person who doesn't know that the United States beat Canada not once but twice in men and women's hockey to win the gold.
That's awesome.
So I was like, here we go.
We're owning them in their own sport, right?
Take that, take that, Canada.
Actually, hope there's no Canadians. Actually, if there's any Canadians listening,
we love our neighbors to the north. We just beat you in hockey. I'm
to the feelings of others.
No, I just very competitive.
I know.
There are times though I ask the Lord, why did you make me? I wish I didn't care, but I love winning. So go USA. Anyways, I was thinking about, Jake always makes fun of me because we would be watching the Olympics and I was like, oh, I could do that. And he was like, no, you can't. These are world-class athletes. And I'm like, well, I can't do like they do, like to that level, but like I can ski down the side of a mountain and not die. So I was thinking, if you were an Olympian in the Winter Olympics, what sport would you participate in?
Well, I would like to think figure skating, but I was telling these guys, I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota, and where I grew up, there is an ice skating rink at every school from elementary on outside. And hockey actually was our homecoming game because hockey is bigger than football.
So wow, hockey's bigger than football.
Yes.
Insane.
So when you would have recess in elementary school, did you guys ice skate?
You could.
Okay.
Everybody knows how to skate.
I think I've only been ice skating. I think I've only ice skated once in my entire life.
Yeah.
I'm 43.
I'm not good. I just enjoy it.
I think I might have done it just like you, maybe once or twice. I don't remember. So when I was in high school in New York City, Rockefeller Center, there's a big ice skating rink and everything else. And we went out there, obviously, after some girls. And then my friend Oscar fell and broke both arms ice skating. I said, no, thank you. That's not for brown people. Thank you very much. Well, because
your ice skating career came to an end.
I'm like, nope, we're not doing this. Pastor Miki said that she grew up and there was like ice skating rinks in every school. Like, listen, where I grew up, it was 83 degrees all year round.
That's what I'm talking about.
So it's like, nope, no ice anywhere. So
did he have the two casts like this?
Yes. So he used to walk like this, and we used to call him the robot because when he turned, he had to be
that
like,
poor guy. I feel like that's an injury you can't. Like you can't live that down.
It was so
and you
great.
just like walk through.
Great. And we're like, hey, you need help scratching your back or something? It was horrible, but he was a good,
I think that, have you watched the luge? I think it's luge or bobsled. I'm not really sure the difference. Luge is like on a sled, but a bobsled is like almost like a car.
Yeah, like there's a difference because one of them is you
They're
by
both
yourself,
crazy.
and then one is like you have a couple
A
of
team.
people in like a team. The bobsled is like a team, and I like the single one. Look like you're going down this big
On a
old happy slide thing.
I think, what's that called? The
I
luge?
think that's what it is.
Well,
it is not bobsled.
There's
No.
one that, yeah. Anyways, I've always been intrigued by bobsledding since I watched the 90s classic Cool Runnings.
Cool
with
Runnings,
the
yeah.
Jamaican
Yum on.
bobsled. Yeah.
With the egg.
Yeah,
You gotta watch
seriously.
it.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it, highly recommend. But so I always thought that would be fun too because I do love being part of a team. So that combines like my
Bobsled,
competitive
yeah.
nature and being part of a team. But anyways, I think the Olympics are over now. Team USA, if you're listening, we're so proud of you because I think we got second in the medal count. Norway won the medal count, but that's because it's winter in Norway like 10 months out of the year.
Yes.
And the other 2 months it's raining, I think. So
Yeah. So you say what sport? I think the one that you throw a little rock down and
Oh,
you sweep. Like I'm like,
curling.
hey, I can
So,
do that.
I
Oh, me
played
a
that in
sweeper.
college.
You did?
It was the.
That is
I went to
insane.
North Dakota State University, and that was what I took because it was an early class you could take. So yeah,
So you're gonna have to explain off camera to
How
us
that all
how that
works.
whole thing works.
I
I'm
feel
like,
like
what?
it's like bags,
Yeah.
you know, where you like. I mean this with the most respect. I don't know that you have to be an athlete so much as like there's some hand-eye coordination, there is some skill involved, but my kids would call it a competition, not a sport, because it's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know though. I've never curled, so maybe I'm sure there's more.
I chose it because it was easiest of the sports. So
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah.
There you go.
We'll have to look into it. Anyways, wanted to talk about the message this week. We took a break from our neighborhood series to kind of reveal or touch base with Kingdom Builders.
Right.
And so you spoke.
Yeah.
Talked about Kingdom Builders. For those of you who weren't there or maybe missed the message, Kingdom Builders is our ministry initiative of Good News Church, and it's us partnering with both global and local people to bring God's kingdom to earth.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. You can actually read the definition if you have it, so that way it'd be the actual. It is a.
Well, and we'll get to this part too, but I love what you said because it's a ministry of good news that allows us to be on mission together to
Yep.
fulfill and participate in God's mission.
Yep.
Yep.
So I think a lot of times we made this switch to Kingdom Builders, 2-3 years ago?
Oh, it's 4
It's
years ago.
4 years.
Oh gosh! Wow,
Yep.
time flies when you're having fun.
Yep.
But we went from, and we, you mentioned it too, the buckets. We used to have a bucket, and now it's kind of the overlaying umbrella of how we give and how we, support people to both worldwide and locally to bring God's kingdom to earth. But you started with the story of Zacchaeus, which, if you remember, I always think of VeggieTales.
Oh wow.
Because I didn't watch VeggieTales growing up, but when I was
They didn't have VeggieTales when you were growing
okay,
up.
let me stop you right there.
No,
I
but
am
it's
not-
the truth. VeggieTales is not
VeggieTales became
30
a
years
thing
old,
when
40
I
years
was
in college. Okay.
maybe, yeah. When I was watching my little cousins, the Polinskis, shout out to the Polinskis, they grew up on VeggieTales.
I know, yeah.
So, but the story of Zacchaeus and how he was a tax collector who he would have been a traitor to his own people, to
Yep.
the Jews, because he essentially stole money from them at some points,
Yep.
but was also a pawn of Rome because Rome used him for their gain to get money. So he's this guy who's like, not really accepted anywhere he goes.
Yep. You're playing both sides.
Yep, playing both sides. But he wanted to see Jesus.
Yep.
And you tied it into that, Jesus meets him, invites him to his house because Jesus came to seek and save the lost. And I loved what you said. You said, do you remember when he came to find you?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a, that story of Zacchaeus is when I was bringing across the message of God's mission and Jesus' mission. So Jesus' mission is, in essence, a one-liner to seek and save the lost. And so that's what Jesus communicated when talking about Zacchaeus and, saying that now, he and his household have received salvation. And that first part of seeking the lost, seek and save. So many times it's like, when people will be saved. Well, it's the seeking part of this so interesting to me because all of us can remember when it seemed like Jesus was coming after us. And for me, it was just like such a vivid component of my salvation story, just when it seemed like I bump into Jesus everywhere I went, and people, coming totally seemingly out of left field talking to me about Jesus. So, and I didn't say it in the message, but because I felt the Holy Spirit was like, hey, stop. I remember actually being at a bar, at a club/bar, and the bartender is talking to me about Jesus. And that's when, everyone, my brother was saved, my parents, my sisters, and everybody was talking to me about Jesus. And we're drinking, we're having a fun all time, and this guy is pouring me a drink, and he goes and says, man, one of the things is, like, have you ever thought about who you want to meet when you die? And I'm like, no. Like, he just started talking to me. He's like, man, like, I want to meet Jesus. And I'm like, are you for real? Like, why do you want to meet Jesus? He's like, man, because I think you'll be a very interesting character. First of all, to see if it was real. And he started talking to me. I was like, man, I'm done with you. I'm like, why are you talking to me about Jesus? I don't want to meet Jesus. And he's like, why not, man? You don't believe in Jesus? I'm like, I'm done with this conversation. And I walked away. And I've literally walked away thinking,
everywhere I go,
I can't get away. Like, why is this guy talking to me about Jesus? So it was a whole seek and save the lost. It's like, man, just is so incredible how Jesus goes out of his way. Like right here in this story with Zacchaeus, he is walking with a crowds of people, and we know there was a crowd because Zacchaeus couldn't see Jesus over the crowd, and he climbed on that tree, right? So Jesus, in the midst of what I would consider to be chaotic, all these people around him and everything else, and he's walking, and then he takes notice of the one man that was out there really seeking him. He really curious about who he was. But anyway, just I know that we all have stories about Jesus seeking after us.
Which I love that. I feel like I've heard your story a few times, and I didn't know that part of it. But that's
there's
awesome.
A lot of components that you probably don't know yet. But I almost share that on Sunday, but I was like, nah, I don't know. There may be some people struggling.
Podcast crew. Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't want to. There's some people that could be. You can misconstrue that and say, okay, so I could find Jesus in the bar. I could find Jesus. So that's not the message that I want to convey. But it is part of my story. So.
And so, Pastor Miki, you have essentially kind of been a lifelong believer. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement.
But because I would say I'm probably in that camp as well. But I think about the time, sometimes as lifelong believers, we might say, oh, Jesus never really sought me. I always just knew him. But I would challenge that because I think about the times when I was in down and out or away from the Lord. And I remember him seeking me. So I don't know if you have anything that you wanted to share about, even as lifelong believers, how Christ still seeks us.
I would say I have a lot of specific memories of times I was a lot younger and wasn't in a bar, but I knew who God was because my parents taught me from birth. My dad was a pastor of a church, and so I grew up in the church. But there came this point where just because mom and dad said it, it wasn't enough for me anymore. And I think that's the point where I could really recognize that God was seeking me, because I would be in a situation and I would be like, man, what choice am I going to make? And a lot of times it would be like, well, what would my parents think? And then it started to shift to, what would God think about the choice I'm going to make? And I think those are those moments where he was seeking me, but I had already learned how to hear his voice. So it was just a lot different kind of seeking. And I mean, just so many incredible moments. I think the biggest one, I was 11 and I was at Bible camp. And I mean, that was normal for me, Bible camp. But they had an altar call, and I'm the pastor's daughter of a fairly large church, so everybody kind of knew me. And there was a moment of like, I feel like I need to go forward. What are people going to think? And it was like, you know what? I don't care. This is the first time I'm choosing to do this because I want to, not because mom and dad wanted me to.
That's good.
Yeah, I love the differences in both of those examples, but they're both valid. Jesus comes to seek and save the lost. We're all lost. Which will lead me to the next thing that you said. One of the things that you said yesterday that I thought was so beautiful, and you said that you're the product of someone owning the Great Commission.
Right.
Because his mission is to seek and save the lost. So his mission becomes our mission. Right. It's not an option. When we become believers, that is who we become, to seek and save the lost. And you said that you were the product of someone owning the Great Commission. And I think for some of our listeners are probably first generation believers. But some of them might be, second and we were second and third generation. We were talking earlier how I love the way that God uses it all. Yeah. So I'm not sure if you would consider yourself a first generation believer, because I'm not sure when your parents became.
I will. I mean, I do, just because my parents grew up Catholic, and so I knew about Jesus, knew some of the Bible stories, but really we're not practicing, other than my mother really going to mass and things like that. And they basically we got saved, they gave their life to the Lord, my whole family, other than myself, probably I want to say maybe a year before I got saved.
Okay.
And so I will consider, because I didn't grow up really having biblical standards, if you will. So I would consider myself a first generation, and my kids now, like you guys, have grown up in the church, and so that's the difference. But to me, that statement about me being a product of someone owning the Great Commission is so important to me, because when Jesus says, all authority has been given to me in heaven and earth, therefore go into all the world, make disciples of all nations, baptize in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. So the Great Commission, somebody has to own that and say, okay, Jesus has the authority, therefore I will go and make disciples. And somebody owned that. And I heard that message, right? And then God transformed my life, and I'm a product of somebody owning that. So every single one of us, whether it is you grow up in the church and at one point you make that decision, something happened in that camp, Pastor Miki, that you were like, okay, whoever it was sharing at that moment and having that altar call obviously spoke to you, to your spirit, and you say, I need to own my own faith right here, because maybe I'm just doing it because of mom and dad, but right now I want to. So it's somebody being obedient in that context, in whatever context you actually made a decision to be serious about your walk with the Lord. And so that's why the Great Commission is so important, because it is someone owning it that actually then changes the trajectory of somebody else's life.
I was going to say, Sarah and I were even talking about this, because I was thinking about that too, of thinking back to who was the person who owned that affected my family, where you're first generation, but we were talking about it, and I was like, we have actual stories that my grandma's collected when they were in Russia.
Wow.
In the early 1900s. Somebody went there and was obedient, owned it, and shared the gospel with a family member that's 5 generations removed from me, who accepted the Lord. And they even have things of her writing and saying, as she was coming over to the United States, praying over all the generations that would come, that they would learn to know the Jesus that she had met. So I look at that and I'm like, I'm 5th generation, if I've got my numbers correct. My kids are 6th generations. My grandkids are 7th generation. And I can't even put numbers behind the obedience of that one person of saying, I own this. How many lives have been transformed because one person went and shared the gospel?
That's amazing.
I know. I love the ripple effects of somebody being obedient in the early 1900s, somebody being obedient 30 years ago, 20 some years ago.
So, yeah.
I love to share this story. My parents became believers because my dad's dealer somebody shared the gospel with my dad's dealer, and the Holy Spirit does what the Holy Spirit does, and something clicked for my dad and his brothers and changed not only their lives, but my family's quite large, so the ripple effects of it now going to, they were first generation, I would be considered second generation, and then my children is the third, but then how it's permeated through the entire family. It's just really amazing. So I think to our listeners, maybe encouraging, never discount, your part in owning the Great Commission, whether that's, maybe you are a new believer and you're still trying to figure it out. And what does this look like? And how do I share Jesus? Or how do I even live out my faith? Just don't discount those little things. Or maybe you are a more seasoned believer and, you're ready to jump into serving and helping in youth or helping with kids or leading a small group or something like that. It's just, you never know what your obedience, how it can change. It changes your heart. It changes the trajectory of many families. So
absolutely,
I thought that was a great example. But going back, you did talk about therefore go, but in all authority. So you said don't take the go without the authority.
Right.
Talk about that a little bit. What do you mean? What does that mean by going with the authority?
Well, it's because sometimes, and I think for me, earlier in my walk, it was just like evangelism was a huge thing. Like everybody's like, oh, evangelism, basically you have to go and share Jesus with other people. I really did not know how to do that. And so many times I felt like that fell on deaf ears, if you will. And I was very, I know that you guys cannot imagine this, but very opinionated, very...
You?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. And talking a lot. And so the that thing about Jesus saying I have all authority is really, really stuck out to me, just because sometimes there is the natural things that are hindrances to the gospel. There's also spiritual components, the spiritual forces of darkness that are a hindrance to the gospel moving forward. And I realized that even in people in my life that I was like, Lord, I just want them to be saved. I can't do it on my own strength. I can't do it on my own authority. There's an authority that supersedes my authority, that supersedes any other authority, that supersedes the powers of darkness, and that's the authority of Jesus. And so my question automatically is reading those verses, and it's like we so many times dismiss that verse 18, and when Jesus says, all authority has been given to me, therefore go, and it's like, well, wait a minute, why did he say that to them, right? So that's the first question. Why did Jesus say that to them? It's like, listen, I am giving you the authority that has been given to me, and now basically giving it to you. It's almost like you've been deputized. You've been like given this trust, and it's almost like those, you see those seals of the king, that it's like, like, man, if the mandate is posted and you see that king seal, it's like, okay, you need to listen to that. So now it's almost Jesus like saying, like, listen, I put my seal of approval. This is yours. Show it to anybody, because I've given you authority to actually carry this out. So it's not a mission that we go and it's just in our own strength, that it's all in the authority that we possess, whether we feel like we have it or not. But it just really spoke to me in the sense like, yeah, I can do this, because Jesus not only commended us to do it, he actually gave us the authority to do so. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think that too comes, I hear all the time, I don't feel like I'm equipped, or I don't know what to say, or I'm not really a people person. The reality is it's not about me. It's the authority that I'm going into. And I think even for me, there have been a lot of times where I'm in a situation, it's like, I don't need to be afraid. Who cares what they think of me? I'm going to share the truth regardless. And then it's God's authority and the Holy Spirit to do the rest. I just have to be obedient to share, whether that's in words or even actions of carrying, his characteristics into a situation, or sharing just some of the things that he's given me, that uniqueness, like just being obedient to who he's made me to be, and not being apologetic because I don't need to be, because I carry his authority.
And I think sometimes we, in our minds, we think we have to have all the answers to all these deep theological questions and spiritual doctrines. And, you even just said, sometimes it's about the action. Sometimes it's about showing up for people and offering a hug. Or we talked about it, was it last week? The generosity piece of, being like Christ and offering a smile, or a, hey, how are you? Or just even a simple, I don't know if if it's sneaky or what, but when I'm talking to somebody who maybe I don't know if they're a believer or not, and we're just friends, like if I'm at another job or whatever, I might just say, oh man, I'm really sorry. I'm going to pray for you. You know, just little things like that kind of drop seeds where people might, you're going to pray for me? And then it just starts a conversation. So sometimes I think maybe we make it harder than it needs to be, or we're intimidated or feel unqualified. And God's like, no, here. And ultimately, too, it is the Lord. It's not our job to save anyone. We just sow the seed. So,
yeah, let me add a little bit to that qualification component. Think about the man that Jesus called.
Is in the story you're talking about Zacchaeus or just generally?
No, the disciples.
Oh, the disciples.
Right.
Okay.
Like, think about the man that Jesus called. And sometimes I think about that. We're like, well, we disqualify ourselves. And then when you look at those that he chose, I mean, one of them was a tax collector. We talked about Zacchaeus. And the tax collectors were hated by both the Romans and the Jews.
Hated them.
So it's like, wow. So sometimes we disqualify ourselves without really putting thought to the process of how Jesus chose these men. You have blue-collar workers, people that, I mean, fishermen, I don't want to be a fisherman. Please,
Stink.
Not only stink, it's hard work, and you out there in the sun all day long, and sometimes you catch, sometimes you don't catch, it is just, and you're in the midst of storms, it's just like all of the things, but Jesus says, I want those guys, because, they didn't cut it to actually be apprentices and become rabbis, because you've been rejected. You're right here. You're like on the fringe. And he goes and picks them. And so, again, it's like when Jesus says, all authority has been given to me, these guys know exactly what he's talking about, because they're like, oh, yeah, we've seen it all. Like, we've seen what you've done, and now you come back from the dead. Like, wow. So anyway, so I just wanted to speak to that qualification.
Thinking about that, what qualified them? They said yes. They said, okay, we'll go with you. Yeah. And it's such a simple act of obedience, but that's really all he's looking for.
Absolutely. And
is the yes.
That is good.
So I want to shift a little bit, speaking of that yes, because I want to talk about practically how Kingdom Builders works. Maybe for some of our Good News family or people listening, they think, well, what is Kingdom Builders? We talked about being the ministry initiative of Good News, but Pastor Miki, you oversee. We've had a transition on our team, and now you're going to oversee Kingdom Builders. So if you can give everybody just like a quick summary of what that looks like, when we say, oh, we pay out $50,000 in the first quarter. Wait, what? Who? To who? Who's getting 50? You know what I mean? Like, what does that mean? Because I'm going to be honest. I don't know how long have I worked here? A couple years. Prior to that, I was like, I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's just where I was at. Okay, we all know where I was at before coming here.
So we have a process that about the middle of the year, moving into the fall, we have open applications for people who have a ministry, either globally or locally, to apply to be a partner. And a partnership is that we agree to a financial partnership, and that we give them a set sum. We have a way we standardize our giving, and so we have a set sum that we give for different things. We're looking for unreached people who are engaging with the unreached or the unengaged. I don't think you mentioned that, but it's both. Unreached don't have access. Unengaged is there may be access, but no one has engaged it. And so looking at that, as well as are they reaching the marginalized? And so there's a whole process. People apply, and then we sit down and we say, okay, here's our budget. Let's look and see if they are reaching those areas. And we have a task force that sits and goes through them. We have just a process of figuring out if they are completely aligning with the things that we want to align with, where we want to partner, and then we pray. And I think that's one of the things that I have noticed the most of how encouraged our workers are, both locally and globally, in actually just letting them know, hey, we're praying. Tell us what your prayer request is, and then me responding and letting them know. Or we have teams that actually do that. And so we partner with them in that way. If they're here itinerating, which means they're coming to the United States, or they're spending some time raising funds, because they have a budget. They have a budget. They have to meet it. When they go overseas, or if they're even working here locally, they have expenses, and they have to be able to meet their expenses. So they take a season and go and try to find people who will partner with them. So that's kind of the process. So we usually have people that there are partners for a long period of time. But every year we have a lot of people who apply that are new.
I'm smiling because I was privileged to help kind of process some of those applications this year. There's a lot of applications.
Yes.
And the truth of the matter is that we, as Good News Church, we don't have an unlimited budget. The Lord does, we don't. And so we can't support everyone that applies, but it is a very prayerful process of going through. And I want to press on the fact that these are normal, everyday people who just said yes to the Great Commission. And so we have everybody from global workers who many of you know, they grew up in Good News Church and now they're out serving what you might refer to as missionaries, but now we use the term global workers, who are overseas trying to spread the gospel. And then everybody, even locally, like Ashore Women's Center, New Community is another one. And it's just people who are saying yes to wanting to fulfill the Great Commission.
Yep.
And it's a beautiful thing. So having said that now, and kind of getting an idea of maybe what exactly that means as kingdom builders, it says, or you mentioned Kingdom Builders is a ministry that allows us to be on mission together to fulfill and participate in God's mission. Because once we say yes to him, his mission becomes our mission.
Absolutely. And that's the connection there. So like the reason why we're talking about Jesus' mission to come and seek and save the lost. And then we talk about the Great Commission, which is not the great suggestion. That means that you don't get to choose it. If you're a disciple of Jesus, a follower of Christ, it is a mandate to each and every one of us. And so the reason why we talked about that and then we're pivoting to Kingdom Builders is because Kingdom Builders is what helps us as a church family actually accomplish, in part, that mission of Jesus. And it is to seek and save the lost. It is to actually, set the captives free, is open the eyes of the blind. And, and so... So that's why we do what we do, and so that is exactly what Kingdom Builders does. And so that process is a great process because it's just like, we look at those applications and man, you guys do a lot of work going through all those applications because then people are like, oh, I want to partner with Good News and I want to partner with Good News. But we have to figure out, okay, where is God calling us to be and to what are the people that God is calling us to minister? So locally, yes, the marginalized, and then globally, those that have not been reached, the unreached people groups, and the unengaged, as Pastor Miki was saying. So that is the primary focus that God has given us. And it has really helped us in being able to see, what you're doing is fantastic. It's a great ministry, but it is not our focus right now.
And there's so many, we've talked about this as the applications come in. It's like, man, there are so many people out there doing the Lord's work.
Yes.
And it's a good work. It's just... It's not that it doesn't align with our values, but maybe align with where our focus is probably a better word. And so with that, can you maybe give a little bit of clarity? Some of these things we can't share names because people are
persecuted areas.
Undercover.
Sensitive.
Sensitive is probably the best word. But we have a couple areas of focus, and if you can maybe share what you can share, just so people have an idea, and maybe how to pray for our global workers in those areas.
So we have 5 focus areas, which are used to be called the 1040 window. It's expanded a little bit because some of the nations now are outside the 1040, which was the latitude and longitude. But they're where the unreached or the unengaged are. And so we call them focus areas. We have the Arab world. We have South Asia. We have Sub-Saharan Africa. We have Eurasia, and South Asia. So those are the 5 focus areas where we have global workers that presently we are partnering with. And we also have what we call our global focus partners. And those are ministries that are here locally, and they have a focus globally for people to reach all nations, as well as we have local organizations. And one thing I was going to say that I think really sometimes we forget in the Great Commission, because it's New Testament, it's Great Commission, but we took a class as a staff, now it's been a number of years ago, called Perspectives. And like I said, I've been a believer a long time. I know a lot of the stories of the Bible, like I've taught them. But when we took that class, I didn't recognize until then that, when I'm reading about David and Goliath, or I'm reading about Daniel and the lion's den, or all these stories that I knew so well, if you go back and look, as a story is finishing, almost every time it says, so that the nations will know that I am God. And it was the first time that it hit me that all of these stories and all of these things that kind of brought the Bible, it was always so that all nations. And so that's why I love that we are focusing, and Kingdom Builders helps us. Hey, America is a nation. Omaha, Nebraska is part of a nation. But it's not just here. God is saying he is seeking all nations know so that they can bring glory to him because he deserves it. And so I love that we can focus on these areas that but very few global workers are actually there engaging, and we can financially put our money where the biggest need is. So that's where we can be more targeted and be obedient to steward what God has given us here at Omaha, Nebraska, to be obedient to what we feel he is calling us to do. Right. And Kingdom Builders gives us that ability.
And we've been a very global-minded church family for several years. But it's maybe like an American mindset. I as a younger person and believer, I would say late teens, early 20s, I remember somebody saying, well, God's not an American. And I was like, yeah, he's not. You're right. But it was the first time that I thought of God outside the lens of my nationality and my lived experience of growing up in South Omaha. You know what I mean? And so I think, let me see. So when we do have all these legit needs, meaning people are like, can you partner with me? Can you partner with me? Can you partner with me? What is Good News's lens that they see out of? How do you decide? You mentioned prayer, but are there other things? You mentioned yesterday that I think 1% of the money given worldwide
from church in America to global work.
So why do we think that is?
Well, I can't speculate as to what it is, but the reality is that
I'm thinking where's the money going? This
is where I'm thinking. So you actually give to and partner with those who you know.
Okay.
There's a lot less global workers, as I also shared yesterday. There's a lot less global workers in unreached people groups. It's a lot more difficult to get into. It's a lot more difficult to stay there long term. And it's just a lot of challenges. Not everybody's wired to go to undercover, if you will, right?
I'm not wired.
Well, and to take their family. I mean, you have to think about
exactly.
We were able to talk with one of our global workers this morning who just adore, and I thought, they're so much better than me. I'm like, God bless you. But that's some people's calling, that's some people's role in the Great Commission. And it's amazing because it is coming from me who lives in Papillion, but I'm like, oh yeah, that hard work is so hard. It's talking about it I know it. They can tell me what it's like and I can empathize, but I don't know what that's like. But God bless you.
Yeah, but
you know who you are.
Yeah, but just like you're saying, just being there with them and all our entire staff and being on the video call with them and them talking about how they miss being in a church community and having services. We don't think about those things, how they feel lonely because they're, friendships and family members that they don't get to see and being part of, and seeing their Good News family and just spending time with us. And all these things that we take for granted. The food, right? The culture, the food.
Being able to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And
so, getting lost on the street and being able to say, oh, do you know where the gas station is?
So all of those things come into play. But you asked the question, why do we think that more of the funds go to reach places? Is because there's humanitarian efforts by Christian organizations in some of these areas, and they're far they're better known. So when you go out there, it's like, oh, we're digging wells in this country. Yeah, but that's great. They do need water, but the gospel is already being preached there. So somebody else is doing that work. So we have chosen to actually go to where the least of these are, if you will, and people that it's not as easy to get into. So I think that sometimes it is what and I don't know that people for the most part are thinking is a mindset component, right? It's like, oh, I'm not really thinking of this Arab world, these nations right here really needing Jesus. And so, yeah, we know that they need Jesus, but we don't know anybody there. We don't know any organization. So sometimes it could be just a not knowing component. And so I think that that's also something that I want to make sure that we want to make sure that our Good News family knows about. So that way, when they talk to other people and perhaps friends and other families, they can encourage them to say, hey, our church gives to the unreached people groups. What is that? 1040? What is that? Is that like a time on the clock? No, it's actually, like you say, latitude, longitude, and latitude. Like, it's an actual window within the map, the world that is unreached. And as you have said, as Pastor Miki has expanded. But I think that could be a reason why. Like, you just don't know what you don't know.
And I think, too, when there's a lot more ability and freedom in some of these other countries, then there are a lot more stories because it's more public, and you can have, a VBS on the streets, or you can have a convention and bring people in, and you can do things that then get people excited. And it's, man, did you hear that? This many people came forward.
That's true.
We don't get to have those kind of stories. They're even as we were talking this morning, they're more undercover of this conversation got brought up where somebody made a comment, I would like to read the Bible someday, because he doesn't even have a Bible.
We can promote that. We can put a video.
But then our global worker can't
Facebook
even
page.
jump on that.
Right.
They just have to put that in their back pocket and go, okay, God, here's an opening. Show me how I can share. But I think that's even bringing it back to when I said one person shared with one person, and that when that person began this transformation and gave her the heart to the Lord, that's one story, but over time, it's families and so many more. Yeah. And those stories aren't as exciting to give to maybe as hearing 200 people today. Well, I got to read a scripture verse with one person today. Yeah. It's not the same.
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
not the same. I feel like some of the global work in these areas is just such a slow, steady, almost the word tedious process of planting and watering and planting and watering, and then letting God do what God does. But in the meantime, you're just being faithful to what God has asked you to do.
And that's such a great point, because I remember in my current role, when I first took on this role and I started looking at our funding for global work and everything else, I talked to a few team members. I talked to some of our global workers, and I was honestly very frustrated, because I was thinking so we are giving you X amount of dollars a year, and all you have to show for is that you have a few conversations with people about Jesus. I do that every week.
Yeah.
But it's different context. So I really did not understand that you're talking about tedious, but is the commitment necessary to see actual fruit? So it is the whole planting. And so what I've come to realize is because before I had that Americanized mindset that, you know what? It's I scatter a bunch of seeds, and tomorrow I have a bunch of fruit. And it's no, it doesn't work like that, buddy. It actually takes time. You actually have to plant the seed. Maybe when you get to first you might have to just tend the soil. You can't even drop seed in that soil yet, because it's rocky. So is there a relational component of removing this rock? You work, and that's hot, and you're sweating, and you might spend years just removing rocks. Who wants to do that? Pastor Miki does, because she likes gardening. I hate that stuff. Anytime that I got to be on my hands and knees removing things from the soil, I'm that's it, I give up. We got to pay somebody to do this. So, but it is the tedious work of tending the soil first, and then you have to remove all that, and then you're going to have to go Is it, what do you call it? Aerated? Like whatever you.
Yeah, you can aerate or till it up.
Till it up. Yeah, there you go. That's the word. Till up the. Till up the fallow ground. That sounds like it's biblical, right?
Yeah.
So like you got to break up that thing, and it takes work. It takes a lot of energy. And meanwhile, elsewhere, there's soil that's already been prepped. There's soil that already has seed in it, and there's already that been watered. And all you have to do is like, prune a couple of trees, and boom, there we go. We have flower. That's a lot easier. We have fruit. That's a lot easier. But I did not understand the tenacity, the commitment, the discipline that it takes to actually stick with that. Because if you leave that ground and you till it up, but you don't plant anything,
Weeds grow.
weeds grow.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it is painstaking process, but it's like you said, God has called this individual. So we want to partner with global workers and with organizations that God has called, to do this work.
Because I would even say too, in some of for our local partners, some of these partners, I think of New Community, who has partners with single moms coming out of incarceration. They have hard lives, and so it is the global scene, but it's also the local scene of
Right.
some of these women are coming out of really tough things, and they don't get it the first time, just like I didn't get it the first time. And so it's coming alongside those people who are coming alongside these ladies saying, all right, this is how we do it. This is the choice that, we're going to make, and we're not going to give up, and we're going to keep reading together, and we're going to keep praying, and we're going to get through this. And so supporting those, because I think even just for anybody, the Christian life, the Christian journey, if you will. Pastor Jason referred to it once as a pilgrimage. I thought that was a beautiful picture because it's a picture of like an ongoing. I mean, that's what it is. It's not just a one and done. Like, oh, I'm saved, so we did it. Check it. We got it. We got another one in heaven. It's just an ongoing process. But you had mentioned it, and then you said it yesterday about why does this matter? Why do we do this? Why do we partner with people all over the world? Why do we partner with people in Omaha? Why do we partner with people who are in Omaha, who reach people around the world? Why do we have Good News Church? Why do we meet every Sunday? And it's because it's a burden that God has given us.
Yeah, and further than that, I think so there is God's mission, and I talked a lot in the message about God's mission becoming our mission and owning it and participating in it, and He has invited us into it. But it is the component when you say, why do we do what we do? Why do we partner with global workers? Why do we partner with organizations globally and locally? Why are we passionate about church multiplication? And in essence, why does even Good News Church exist? And the answer to those things is God's mission is our mission, and I can't do it by myself. So we have that whole being on mission together is huge, because if we're going to say that, some churches may say, oh, we're a community of believers. We say that we're a family. However you want to put it, the reality is that God calls us His children. That automatically makes us family. There's one Father, and we're all His children. You guys are my sisters. I have brothers. And we have to do this together. We go about this together. And one group cannot do it without the other group. That's why it is important. Doesn't matter what church is going up in our city. I celebrate every time I see that there's a new sign for a church going up, because it is us taking territory back, right? Is what Satan has stole it, and now we're taking it back. It's like we're moving back the forces of darkness. And so to me, it's like, why do we do what we do? Because God sent His only Son. And then Jesus, in obedience to the Father, died. And then He rose again, and He says, here, now you do it. I showed you how to do it, now you do it. And so like the fact that He invited us into this mission is mind-blowing to me.
Tana says it a lot too. She'll say, because everybody should be able to know Jesus, like I know Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I look back over my life and I think about how God has worked and what He has done, I'm like, man, everybody should have this experience, I thought it was great. And then we're kind of going to start to wrap things up here. But as we do, you made this statement yesterday, Sunday, that we should always look at others and think of others as someone that Jesus died for.
Yeah.
That's a challenge for me sometimes.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
and more specifically, when we're talking about the mission, what I want us to think about is not someone that Jesus died for. Yeah, that's good. But I think about what this message has caused me to pause and think is like this individual is someone that God is seeking and wants to save. So that the mission of Jesus is to seek and save the lost. This person is lost, so God is seeking and wants to save. So when I think about it in those terms, I'm like, man, like I really don't want to be in any kind of relationship with you. And listen, like there's wisdom in that too,
Sure.
right? But there is an opportunity that when God gives you an opportunity and somebody just their path and your path just intersect somehow and they're lost. As you said, sometimes my initial thought is like, yeah, fine, you could keep you could take your journey that way, and I took my journey that way, and we just get far from one another, right? And perhaps that's not what God wants to happen. Perhaps it's that intersection right there that He's like, I have caused this to happen, so you pay attention that I'm seeking this person, and I want them saved, and it's I've told you to go and make disciples. And sometimes we think that making disciples is, I'm just going to, hey, I want you to get saved tomorrow. But sometimes it's thinking through those global workers and being like, what kind of rocks do I need to remove from this soil? What kind of tilting needs to happen in this person's heart and mind? And perhaps they have come from a background that makes it very, very difficult for them to receive the gospel. But I'm the picture of the gospel to them right now. So anyway.
I've a lot of times just even prayed, God, help me to see everybody through that lens, that they are fearfully and wonderfully, uniquely created in God's image.
Yeah.
Not just my American family, but literally like looking at every human being and understanding that He didn't say that about one culture or one people group. Every person is uniquely designed by God with a purpose.
Right.
And so with that in mind, how can we not be a part of Him seeking?
Yeah.
Because everyone has value to God, and He wants everyone to know who He is as their Father.
That none should perish, right? So for somebody who maybe looks at that and thinks, well, I'll just speak for myself. Sometimes the thought of living with that kind of, I don't know if tenacity is the word, or passion maybe, of like, that person is worthy of the Lord, of the gospel, that person is worthy. Because sometimes if I'm at one of my kids' basketball games, I'm going to be honest, I'm like, I don't
want you to say that you're Christian, okay? Do not wear any of your Good News Church shirts
You guys,
or any of your Christian
this is side
stuff.
note, that's why I won't put one of those Jesus things on my car, on my bumper, because I'm like,
we don't want you misrepresenting us.
But that's not that. You know what? That's another conversation, another day.
So you were talking about the basketball games.
But sometimes I don't feel like talking to anybody, let alone sharing the gospel, or like, if I'm at there's this Bible prayer app that I have, and part of it every day you say the same prayer, and it finishes with saying, "And help me to be kind to everyone I meet." And I'm like, sometimes I don't want to be kind to everyone I meet, because sometimes people act stupid and I want to tell them that they act stupid. So for somebody who like that is, maybe it's like, oh, that's overwhelming to think of every person as uniquely and wonderfully and fearfully made. How do I live with that kind of passion for the lost? You said it earlier. I think you said something about evangelism was a big thing when you first became a believer, and I don't know if that was like the times. I don't know. The 90s, I feel like, was very.
I was not saved in the 90s. Thank you very much.
Oh, when did you get?
I got saved in 2001.
Anyways, back then,
late 2001.
I do feel like it was like everything was about, you need to tell everybody about Jesus.
Oh yeah.
And you do, but there's wisdom in relationship. Removing the rocks.
So there's a difference. So our culture has changed, right? Like back in the day, it was totally okay for you to jump like right away. Like, hey, you have a process to take somebody through the Romans road, right? And like just evangelism explosion and all these kind of
these steps,
things. Yeah, right.
Tracks.
But our communities, our culture has changed in America. So it's like it's highly not highly relational because people are on social media and like actually, we don't do face-to-face as much as before anyway. But there's value in you actually getting to know someone instead of just trying to, do a presentation of, here it is, this is what I believe in. You should believe what I believe. And people are not open to that anymore. It's like, you could believe what you believe and we believe what I believe. And like, so to your point about the whole, you were saying be nice, and your app tells you to be nice to somebody today. We actually had a conversation on Wednesday night on our breakout for the men's breakouts on Wednesday. And if you don't come, you should come.
You should come.
But women have their own breakout too. So we were having this conversation. One of the guys talked about something, and I was like, man, this is really good, because it was like, Lord, today may you give me an opportunity to share who you are with somebody. And like, I think that more specifically, like being kind to everybody that I come in contact with, well, depending on your personality, depending on how you actually quantify it or define kindness or whatever. Yeah, like I'm not going to act like a moron to people that I come in contact with, but God, help me to see an opportunity, right? Help me to see an opportunity that you give me. And that opportunity may not come every day, but on a day that it comes, help me to see it. Help me to, because there are people that will come in contact with you somebody else has already removed the rock, somebody else had tilled the ground, somebody else has planted the seed, and the seed is deep in there. And all God is asking you to do is just go water it. And so Holy Spirit could bring that in a moment. And you're like, ooh, this person right here. Like, it just, whether it sparks a conversation, like you say, oh man, I'll pray for you. And they'll be like, pray? Like, are you a believer? And then questions may come up, and maybe an opportunity comes from that. But it is asking the Lord, God, show me those opportunities. And maybe that's what we do. And that's why, I know that we're running out of time, but that's why the other part of Kingdom Builders is that church multiplication, because it's like, okay, we need to make sure that what's happening here in 7415th Hickory happens elsewhere. Like, we just baptized, I don't know how many people, 13 people total in both services or whatever. Like, we want that to happen in other communities, right? And I know there's other churches in our city. There's a lot of churches, but I'm like, our expression of faith may be attractive to some that may not be attracted to another expression of faith, right? Same faith, we're all preaching Jesus, but it's,
I love the example that you used about Chick-fil-A.
Oh yeah.
Chick-fil-A's here, but there's also a Chipotle, and there's a Panera, and there's a Arby's, and there's a McDonald's.
Exactly.
Same food. Everybody's eating, just different flavors.
Absolutely.
But I liked what you said, and it's kind of to answer my own question, but I think if we're obedient to what God has called us to do, and not being overwhelmed with, I need to throw all of this, seed everywhere and hope that something takes.
Something sticks,
It's like, no, God's just saying, just be obedient to what He has you to do, and we do that here. We try to do that on staff. Our global workers are doing that by saying yes. It's a simple yes. So.
You even made the comment of bringing in our mission. We are each determined to fulfill our unique purpose. And I think even in that, there are different unique purposes, even in our characteristics, where there are some people that I know that, man, they are at Walmart walking up to people, and that's the way God designed them, and He gives them amazing opportunities. That's not me, although I hope that I am open, that if God says go over there, that I would understand that I have the authority to do that. But there are so many ways for all of us to just lean into how we're uniquely designed, and it might be having a conversation with someone, it might be just praying. And for some people, they might even just look at it and like, you can give to Kingdom Builders, and you are also fulfilling the design and being impactful in places that I never get to go. I know that when our global worker has a conversation and actually gets to share a Bible to someone who's never had a Bible, that I had a part in that. And because of my obedience of not having a coffee at Starbucks or whatever it is, and giving to Kingdom Builders, like God's using that in the same way. And I get to do it from afar.
Because we are part of a family committed to seeing lives changed. Love it. Love it. So, all right. Well, we are going to end now because I think we might actually be over time. Don't tell Tana. She'll fire me. But we love you guys. If you have any questions or follow-up stories, be sure to email us, podcast at goodnews.church. Have a great week, and we will see you next time.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye.